All right. Well, let's talk about the why because I'm honestly so happy to have you here because I wouldn't want anyone else to be my kind of first guest because I mean, I value you so much as my friend, but for me, this whole thing came around really because of you. Because, I met you, we became friends, and, one day you were like, do you want to know your why? And I was like, okay, yeah, I want to know my why because this is not something when you wake up and you're like, oh, I know what my why is. It takes a while to figure it out. And I think, like, even without you, I don't know, like, I would really kind of have to have a thought about it. So, when I started doing this whole series, one of the questions people ask me is, why am I doing this, right? And then my kind of head came right away back to you and being like, oh, my why is very different from the why that Simon, got out of me. And funny enough, it was really the same one. It is, I want to give people a chance to have a voice, right? And I think for me, this is an opportunity to have my voice heard. And so thank you so much because it was, I think also for me, this is where my discovery of me kind of started because I started to question myself and being like, why am I the way that I am? So what the hell happened there? Like, how did the whole why and like came?
Well, I'm very glad to hear that you thought that what your why was and what I came up with was different, only to discover that it's actually the same. So I'm glad my process.
So
works.
does it also stay the
Yes.
same?
Your why is ostensibly an origin story. It's where you come from, right? Our why, we all have our own unique why, and it is the sum total of how we were raised. It's the experiences we had when we were children that made us who we are today.
Yeah.
And you are who you are. There's no changing you. There's no changing a leopard spots. The only thing you can do is make decisions in your life that will keep you in balance with your why or not. And if you're in balance with your why, it feels like inspiration, it feels like flow, it feels like all of these things, it feels like passion. And when you're out of balance, it feels like stress, it feels like struggle, it feels like discomfort. And what you discovered, which is one of the annoying things about a why, which is why is the thing we give to the world. It's the value we offer to the world, to our friends, to our colleagues, to our clients, our customers, whatever it is. It's how we show up. But the uncomfortable thing about a why is the thing you give to the world, the reason we love you and value you, is also the thing you need the most.
Totally.
And so, if your why is to give a voice to others, and
you need to find your own first.
And the problem is the thing you need the most is a place, or for someone to help you have your own voice.
Yeah.
And only when you are able to get your why will you have the energy and the inspiration to give your why. And it's a rub.
And by the way,
it's really annoying.
I mean, I've met you, what, 5 years ago?
Is it that long already?
I think it's been 5 or 6
Time
years
flies.
ago. And by the way, it's not like I was like, oh, and now I know my why. I'm going to make myself so much better. And like, I'm still kind of not even there, not even close. And finally, like 5 years later, I'm taking the steps to do it.
It's a journey. And the reason I called the book Start With Why is because that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's like college graduation. We call it commencement because it's the beginning. It's supposed to start something. It's the start of the rest of your life. It's not the end of college. It's the start of the rest of your life. And it's the same with Start With Why. Learning your why is not the end of something. It's the beginning of something. Now, though, the real hard work begins. Knowing your why is building the foundation of a house. Once you've built the foundation of a house, you can't move in yet. Now you actually have to build the house and furnish the house and decorate the house. And there's still a whole house, and you're going to renovate the house as you grow up. But the foundation will always remain the same. Who you are is who you are. But the house you build is entirely up to you. That's your vision. That's your just cause. That's the house you want to build is up to you. And so this is what you're doing. The foundation was built, and you stood there looking at it saying, well, what am I supposed to do with that? And you started looking around and experimenting. You started to see that when things fit, they fit on this foundation quite nicely. And you're starting to build the house. You've got some framing up already.
How's your
which is really
house
nice.
building?
It's a journey for me as well.
Yeah.
I mean, all of my work is semi-autobiographical. All of my work is my own journey.
What is your why?
To inspire people to do the things that inspire them. So so together, each of us can change our world for the better. It's why I wake up in the morning. It's why I do what I do, and it is the foundation of of all of my projects. And if I can't pull that off, then I'm not interested.
And so when was the moment of your life when like that clicked for you?
And so I was dissatisfied thinking that life was like roulette, that you spin the wheel and hopefully you're in flow, that you spin the wheel and hopefully you're passionate, knowing equally well that you spin the wheel and you do the same thing and you lose. It doesn't feel good. I was dissatisfied accepting that life every day was a game of chance. And I believed that the times where the numbers hit, there had to be a pattern. There had to be something that connected all of those things, even if it wasn't obvious or superficial. And that's where my work originated, which is this concept of why. I refuse to accept that loving our work is a lottery. You go out with a group of your friends and somebody at the table says, I love my job, and everybody else goes, oh my God, you're so lucky, right? That's not, what? Yeah. They haven't won anything. No. Loving our job is not a lottery. It is a right, not a privilege. We all get to say, I love my work. And so the jobs that you love, the projects that you wish all projects were like, whether they were commercially successful or not, there's a pattern. And that pattern you can discern, and you can, and that pattern, the thing that drives you in all of those circumstances is your why, and the manner in which you operate in all those circumstances are your hows, your natural strengths. So it's just pattern recognition.
So it really started with you being like really vulnerable, right?
And I think I would take it a step further. It started with me being really vulnerable.
It started with you being probably really miserable, right?
Oh yeah.
So you needed to like really hit the rock bottom.
I hope that you don't have to hit rock bottom. And that's one of the reasons I try and spread my message is I had to go there.
Yeah.
And I'm glad.
I had to go there too.
And I'm glad I did.
Me too.
I don't want to go do it again. I never want to experience that again, but I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
And the reason I try and preach my work is we don't all have to go through that in order to find our why. Let me have gone through it so you don't have to.
Totally.
The fact that I can say, look, here's what it takes to find passion. I hope people go through that process to discover their why and live their why without having to hit rock bottom.
But you also have to be able to say, be vulnerable and be like, I'm unhappy. Right? This is where
you have to be honest.
Because I mean, for me, I find that you get so much power by being vulnerable. Like I used to be super very closed, and then now I'm like, let me tell you like my most, my scariest secret. I mean, I would say to a stranger, because I think you don't really care what they're going to say. If they're going to accept you, great, it's going to make you feel great. But if they don't, you're kind of like, okay, fine, I'll figure it out. But somehow like you really learn how to love yourself, and you're like, yeah, I have a problem. There's something wrong with me, but it's okay because I just put it out in the universe.
But I know this about you because we've been friends. And I know in the early days of our friendship, I would say, how are you? And everything was always fine. Everything was always good. And even if there were some things that was difficult, you'd always spin it. You're like, this is an amazing opportunity. Like, everything was always good. And now if you and I get together, you'd be like, it's been a rough week, you'll say to me.
Really?
Yeah. You didn't used to say, in the early days of our friendship, there were no rough weeks.
I was like happy-go-lucky.
Yeah. Everything was good, and everything was going to be good. And now it's kind of an amazing thing when we get together, because you and I have, I think, the word that comes to mind is better. We have better conversations. We have deeper conversations.
We have very deep conversations.
We have conversations where we
all the time.
I know, and we're actually interested in what the other person is saying, and both of us take the risk to say how we actually feel or what we think, even though to anybody else it would be, well, vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I do have a different opinion than you, though. I don't believe in sharing that with strangers.
No, I don't walk to anyone at a park and being like, let me tell you my secret.
But it's worth saying, because Brené Brown talks about this all the time, which is this. There's an entire generation now that too many people have confused vulnerability with you setting up a camera and going on YouTube and telling everybody, reporting out is not vulnerability.
Yeah.
you know?
This is vulnerability.
Right,
When
asking strangers to be the crutch is not vulnerability. And getting affirmation from strangers because you express something online and a bunch of people say, I'm there for you, I believe in you, is not vulnerability. It's something else. I'm not sure it's healthy. Again, Brené is vastly more qualified to talk about it than I am, and she talks about it. She talks about that is actually dangerous. Vulnerability is a very intimate experience, and it requires a psychological safety. It requires degrees of trust, because we don't want to. Nobody wants to feel judged, and we all want to feel heard, and sometimes we just need to sit in it. We don't want somebody to fix the problem for us. We just need to say it. Yeah. And, to have somebody who cares about you say, no matter what, I'm going to be here with you, and mean it.
It gives you such a sense of comfort.
And by the way, that's where courage comes from. I firmly believe that courage is external. I think few people can dig down deep and find the courage. I think courage comes from the outside. And, the reason somebody has the courage to jump out of a plane is because of the parachute on their back. It's the parachute that gave them the courage. A world famous trapeze artist will never try a brand new death-defying act for the first time without a net. It's the net that gave them the courage. And for human beings in social relationships, it's and trying to go through life, it's other people that give us courage. I've had the opportunity to meet some remarkable men and women who had risked their lives to save the lives of other people, believing that they were going to die. Through some twist of fate, they didn't. And I've had the opportunity to ask them, why did you do it? No one ordered you to do it, and no one would have faulted you if you didn't. Why did you do it? They all say the same thing, because they would have done it for me. It was the belief that someone had their back that gave them the courage to act that way. It's not the absence of fear. It's acting in the presence of fear. That's what courage is. Courage is not the absence of fear. People who act with courage are absolutely scared, but they do it anyway. And so I think it's the same for this. We have the courage to solve our problems. We have the courage to live another day. We have the courage to make difficult decisions for our careers. We have the courage to wake up and do it again when we have the knowledge that someone has our back, that someone cares about us.
So who's got your back?
I'm very lucky that I have a couple of very close friends who I know will be there for me no matter what.
What's your scariest case scenario?
Loneliness, abandonment. I think that's every human being on the planet.
Even knowing that you have amazing friends? Well,
I think the same thing that keeps us all going is the thing that I think we all fear. We all want to feel like we belong, and we all want to feel that someone cares about us and loves us. And I think the worst fear for any human being is the feeling that we don't belong, and the feeling that no one's there for us.
Is there something with yourself that you feel like you've gotten right, that you've figured out this year? Something that you didn't know before?
So I think to view ourselves in terms of strong or weak is incorrect, but rather to understand the contexts or situations in which the way we approach our world is an advantage or a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. So if you're really good at math, you'd say that's a strength. Well, if you become an accountant, but not if you become a basketball player, you want to be in the environment where your strengths will actually be strengths and your strengths are not weaknesses. So I'm paying a lot more attention to the environment and the context and the situations in which I'm operating, and I work very hard to put myself in situations where my characteristics will be strengths. And I think too many of us just sort of waft through life and say, I'm strong and I'm weak. But we actually have the ability to block and tackle and try and move things to the left or to the right so that we will more likely succeed versus not.
So what is it, a practice?
Yeah, it's a practice. It's being hyper aware of what's being asked of us and the situations we're in.
How do you do that? I mean, because you kind of have to really think about what you really have to analyze yourself.
You have to know who you are. But again, stop thinking in terms of strengths and weaknesses and rather evaluate oneself in terms of this is how I do things. I'm more likely to have success in this kind of circumstance. I'm more likely to struggle in this kind of circumstance. Not strength or weakness, just this is how I work, and these are the circumstances under which I work better or worse. And we should all still strive to be the best versions of ourselves. There is still self-work. But sometimes it's actually easier to change the environment than it is to change ourselves. I can beat myself up till the end of days saying, I wish I was more organized. I've downloaded every organization app. I've tried every technique, and it works great for about a week. I'm like, beat this, I succeeded. And a week later, I'm back to what I was doing, So I'm trying to do that self-work, but turns out I'm just better if I can change the environment.
But why would you want to change yourself? I mean, this is not a deal breaker. You know what I mean? Why do you feel like you're really struggling with something like this?
If I continue to put myself in environments where those characteristics will more likely lead to frustration, stress, or failure, then that will destroy my self-confidence and it'll make me feel stupid and weak. But it's just the circumstances. It's the environment. And I think a lot of us, take somebody who's struggling in a job, right? It can be debilitating. The performance lags, you're struggling to get along with your boss or your colleagues, and it can destroy your self-confidence. And unfortunately, the way that we're often asked to leave a company is, your performance is down, you're no good, get out. So we don't help people when their confidence is down and we push them down further. Rather, to see ourselves and say, I'm struggling here, they're struggling with me. Maybe this is the wrong environment for me. And likewise, if we're the employers, to say, this is a good person, this is a smart person, we hired them, we must have seen something in them, and whatever it is, however they do business or however they conduct themselves, this environment isn't working to their strengths. They're good people, and so how do we help them go somewhere where they're more likely to succeed? We want them to be confident and do well in the world. And it's unfair to say somebody is bad or stupid or underperforming. Usually it's the environment. Put them in the right environment, they'll probably thrive. The struggle is how to find the right environment. I know people with amazing work ethics who they're naturally inclined to just work hard. And when they're in the right work environment, that work ethic, they're happy people and they're passionate. But in the wrong work environment, they're still bring that same work ethic, but the stress that mounts up is extraordinary. And they end up being extremely unhappy, even though they're working hard and getting good results. So I would rather they go somewhere where that work ethic is beneficial to them health-wise, and not detrimental, even if their performance is strong either way.
Well, it really starts with you, and you are that for me and all your friends and for all the people that read your books. And honestly, you are such a wonderful friend and an amazing, incredible person. I always get so inspired how incredibly nice you are to people who come to you. You never say no to take pictures or to sign autographs. You always ask them questions in their names, and that really inspires me to be a better human. It really does. And there's not that many friends that I have who do that. So it really starts with you. So thank you so much for being you. I love you so much.
The feeling's mutual. And
thank you for doing this.
Thank you. I love you.
Thank you for
so
inspiring
much.
people.
Thank you.